Picture this. You've worked for about a year, maybe 4 months, maybe 5 months on an epic campaign-ending monster. They arrive in the room, the players look up at the beast. Its size and scope impressive and intimidating, and it's everything you want it to be, and then combat starts, and it all falls apart. So today, we're here to try to help that. We're going to work on making a D&D stat block to make it live up to all the expectations that you've set before. So join me as we learn how to make an incredible stat block for an incredible monster. I don't know if I'll include the first half of this. I'm going to go ahead and do a recap of everything I did in case I decide to remove it because I was kind of rambling and now I have complete thoughts on things. So we're going to talk about everything leading up to this point because up till you get to traits, actions, bonus actions, reactions, legendary actions, you're really just crafting an idea of what you want them to be. But what we have here is Gelbor the Gargantuan, huge giant, chaotic neutral. He's a dude, loyal, protects the domain of fire. He has a 17 armor class. The reason I like 17, if we're talking about level 10 players, they're probably gonna have a +6 to +7 to attack depending on what magic items they have, meaning that on median, 10 is an average number to roll. They'll likely roll between 1 and 10, 50% of the time, and then 11, 20, you know. So we want them to have like a median of hitting of usually, in my opinion, 60% of the time they should hit. It's no fun to be against the final boss and not get a hit. There's a chance they only get 10 rounds and that one player doesn't hit the whole night. Very annoying. Give them a 60% chance to hit and buff the hit points a little bit more. So 17, good number. Just think whatever their pluses are, kind of average them out and pick a number where they'll hit 60% of the time. It'll make them have a much better time and you can account for that via their health. Speaking of health, assume that most characters will do 30 damage a round. Some people will miss and do no damage. Some people will heal and do no damage. But if you assume 30 a round for level 10 characters, it's a pretty good chance that maybe your rogue misses, but then your paladin hits and smites for level 6 spell slot, however they want to do it. Just watch out. You want to make sure that you are accounting for a good amount. So at 30 damage from each character round, 4 players, 3. We've got 160 damage. He can survive a few rounds. We're going to give him things that will give him a better chance to survive. We're also including in here that he's going to have legendary resistances, but assume 30 damage a round and then make sure they'll at least last 3 rounds of the heaviest hits they can get. And I think you end up being good. If you want to prevent them from just steamrolling them, that's where you get to this next area. Make sure they have saving throws and things that are important. I like strength and con a lot because strength and con prevent a lot of the actions that will stun your monster, and that's good. Athletics will also prevent them from being grappled oftentimes, and for the final monster, usually you don't want them to be grappled, prone, or other conditions, so I give them resistance to charm and prone a lot of the time because usually my creature is some giant, massive, ancient wisdom. It makes sense they're going to have resistances. And that way I can save my saving throws, legendary actions, my legendary resistances for more important things. That is a recap of everything I've done up to this point. We're now going to talk about the traits. So now you may notice it says challenge rating 18 because of the health. I never truly believe challenge rating right after we leave like level 5. I just don't think that, and especially a group of 6 like I play with, they can roll through anything because action economy is so important and challenge rating doesn't factor that in. There are things like shadows that can steal max constitution or strength, and they're like a CR half or something crazy low, and like you could throw them in there and not know that they'll just destroy a party. So I recommend death spirals will happen all the time. Just adjust some things on the fly. If this hit points really seems to be so high that you think this challenge rating is too high for your party, then run something lower. But I just say most of the time, parties get pretty strong and they're pretty smart and we all want them to win in the end. So since we're telling the story together, don't worry about the challenge rating. If something's wrong, fix it. Don't stick to just what you had written down. Games are better when they're balanced, and sometimes you're not a perfect game designer. Balance on the fly. So moving on to traits. If we're using Gelbor as our giant, I kind of like this aesthetic of him. He's dripping lava. So there's this idea that if you start your turn within his range, lava might fall on you, and lava does a lot of damage. Well, we're just going to balance that out and just say, every turn that you start within Gelbor's range of influence, you take a dex saving throw of, we're looking for a 60% success rate, usually from the players. So the rogues will have higher and almost always avoid it. The fighters will usually get hit by it, but they can tank it. So we're going to go ahead and add a trait, and we're going to adjust it and call it Lava Fall. Cool name. You're around within the range of make a DC 16 saving throw. Easy trait. Beginning of the round, you started next to him, fighter. roll dex saving. Lava falls as you dodge to the left and swing again. Lava falls and you don't manage to dodge it in time as it drips over you, heating up your armor to levels that are extremely uncomfortable, if not scalding. This is our world-ending giant. If he's attacking one player at a time, he's going to have to attack multiple times per turn, but this idea that a giant sweeps across the land, Dark Souls style, and it's just hitting the entire arena is a big idea of it. So I'm going to go ahead and say that anytime he uses the attack action, he can attack anyone within his range that isn't like a 180 cone in front of him. But the idea is he's going to get disadvantaged because he's not singularly targeting somebody. So he may hit less often, but he may hit more people. This is a trade we're willing to take because he's going to have pretty good stats. It's likely he'll hit a lot, and it adds this mechanic of don't stand next to me, stand behind him, move around. It's going to add a mechanic to the fight that they're constantly thinking about because maybe they want to disengage to get out of his range. Maybe they're afraid to be in his range. Different things they now have to deal with. He can attack us if I'm in front, or if I'm too close to him, lava's going to fall on me. This is adding dynamic parts to the fight that every round that your players make a decision, they're making something impactful. Where they end is not just in position to hit him, it's in position to hit him and not be hit back or to avoid lava. You're giving choices to the players without having to do too much. Set these ground rules up and they're going to play within your space. Lava Blood, let's call it that. And if Gelbor starts his round within lava, he regains 4012 HP. 4012, let's go plus 6. You can change that number however you want. I like 4012 plus 6 because it gives them an incentive to keep him out of lava. So they may not be able to push, but they may be able to, antagonize him out of it, but then it gives him somewhere he wants to run to and possibly take attacks of opportunity, and it's still worth it for him. So this gives them the chance of he's falling on his back foot, he's trying to retreat to the lava pools. Stop him. You may not have to use this, but having it gives him more variety so that he's trying to do other goals besides just attack party. He may say, you know what, retreating may be a good option, and that always makes the players feel super in charge when the giant lava monster is retreating from them. Now, actions. I don't run a lot of spellcasters, but I'm going to give you a quick spellcaster recommendation. Make up your spells. You don't have to run ones from the book. A necromancer should be able to stand up and go, rise, and zombies should rise. I believe that's Matthew Colville who came up with that idea, and I love it. Don't be limited to what the Player's Handbook has. Homebrew something if you need a spell that'll really impact. Like if this guy has known in the past been in a war where he called a tsunami made of lava, I need a tsunami made of lava to happen during this battle. I don't believe Gelbor is a spellcaster, so I'm going to keep that out of his repertoire, but I highly recommend if you need something dramatic, don't be limited. Because if a player's used that spell before and you're using it not quite right, it's going to bother him just a little bit, and I don't think that's worth it. I was about to run to actions, but I forgot to go ahead and give him multi-attack, so let's go ahead and give him multi-attack. Because Gelbor can cleave, we're going to give him 2 attacks per round. If you feel this isn't enough when you start fighting, you can always have him like rage and get disadvantage, but kind of scale it as you go, because great balancing can happen on the fly. So make sure that if it's not good, 2 attacks per round is good, because we may give him a ranged option and a melee option, and we'll make sure that if he needs to attack a wizard who's far away, that he has the option to do so. Maybe at disadvantage to himself, but options are options. So what should you give your big monster to hit? I personally believe they should have plus 10 minimum. They should be hitting almost every time they swing. They also, with Gelbor, we know he can attack with disadvantage, so we want to give him a good chance to hit. I give him a 50 to 60 to even 70% range to hit, because he's going to make more swings than they're going to get per round, and I just need enough to put the pressure on that maybe a healer doesn't take a damage option, and enough to where when I hit that fighter, he's not like, oh, I'm good, don't worry, attack. I want him to be like, oh, if he swings, I might. We want to make sure that they're making impactful decisions, and if Gelbor's not strong, they won't have to make any decisions. It'll just beat the shit out of the pinata till it pops. Don't let that happen. Plus 10 to hit. Plus 12, plus 11, whatever you need to do. Make sure your big bad is hitting efficiently enough. If you hit a nat 20, maybe scale back on the next turn and make him do something, for himself. But give him something to be afraid of. So plus 10 to hit, and this attack will be 3d12 plus 10. That's a crazy hit. If he rolls low, then so be it. But if he rolls high, they're going to be afraid, and they're going to be like, what, you mean I can be hit for 45 damage out of nowhere, and if he crits and hits a 45 and hits a 90, he'll knock any level 10 person down for the most part in one hit. So this is a good swing. He can even do this in a cone. That's a crazy attack. That's about a dragon's breath, if we're looking at it, is what he's possible of doing, which is great because he's a world-ending monster. Now, as far as his ranged attack, we'll go ahead and call it Hurl Lava, and this will create those lava pools that he may want to sit in. And I wouldn't have him throw at his feet, even though he could, but we'll go ahead and say Gelbor hurls lava from his fingertips, targets people inside, make a DC 17 saving throw. So here's what I do love. I always try to give a constant damage attack. So let's say you're just having a bad night, your rolling's going poorly. Hurling lava will allow him to create a pool. After hurling, the lava remains. So this way, he has an option that does damage no matter what. Even if they pass, unless it's a rogue, he's going to do damage. And then he's going to have an area to go step in that he might start targeting, and they'll start looking at things like, I'm going to use shape water to cool off the lava. Add some dynamic part to the fight. Also, this idea, if it's a small area, they're going to now be getting blocked in. This creates more dynamic parts of the fight. Everything we're doing should stack. We shouldn't just make a loose idea because we really want him to be able to blow the Song of Storms. Why? Does it add to the fight? Does cooling off the lava help Gelbor? If not, why are we doing it? It's their problem, not yours. Keep stacking on features on top of features to give him more interesting things to do. Let's see, we're looking at bonus actions. I don't often work in bonus actions. I try to keep their economy just as simple as possible. I do, however, do reactions because I think it's scary when they're doing things on their turn. So I do reactions that are triggered on things like if someone becomes bloodied, which means drops to half health within range of Gelbor. Gelbor may also have an ability that if someone cools a lava puddle, he gets to get advantage on them. You know, he hates seeing water in his plane, whatever it would be. Try to add reactions that he gives up his reaction to gain, you know, an advantage on his next turn, or if he does his reaction, special things like parry, or, you know, he can solidify himself a little bit, however you want to look at it, or maybe bring more lava up to the surface, making his next lava fall do more damage. We'll go ahead and say that he has a reaction called Erupt. All right, so now we've given him 2 reactions. One, Inner Fire, where he can give himself extra AC, making it harder for them to hit, but he gives up the ability to hit them because remember, they're going to be trying to move in and out of his space because of the lava fall. This gives them a chance for you to give them a little bit of breathing room while also keeping Gelbor from getting hit. And then Erupt is a way to make it where get away from Gelbor for a reason that you maybe want to get everyone out of his range so that he can run for a lava pool. Both of these are dynamic options that allow you to give him space. All right, now looking at legendary actions, these should really just help buff your monster, just round out the edges. Now that you know what they can do, you now know that Unfinished Business I added to most every monster that I'd make for a legendary one, which is he can attack who he attacked last. I like this more than they can make an attack because I think the making attack last makes the players worried about maybe I shouldn't hit him because he'll attack me because I attacked them last. So it gives the idea of the tank can hit them and be like, focus on me. And that is fun for the entire team because somebody may be like, I'm going to run away for a second. It lets your tank if you want them to be able to do that. If you don't care for that, just go ahead and make it where he can attack at the end of someone's turn. Legendary Resistance, always need to have it just in case they try to put him to sleep or do something you really don't want that you didn't give them immunity to. Make sure they know that. I always recommend if they do something that is immunity driven, you let them know as they begin to cast the spell, you give them the ability to make a perception check because during final boss fights, nothing is more annoying than slowly learning that all your spells don't work. So a great wizard to be able to look at a giant, begin casting sleep, and get this kind of gut feeling that maybe it won't work. So allow your players, I highly suggest that if they're going to make a attack or something that won't work on this giant, if you believe they know that their character would truly know it wouldn't work, tell them. And if you believe their character will be able to figure it out because they're high level, then tell them, make a perception roll, DC 14. Your goal is to let them win this roll, but if they don't and they truly just miss it, then that's part of the game. It doesn't happen, but your goal is to help your players have fun, so don't F them over by making them use all these abilities on things you've given them immunity to, because you gave them immunity on a lot of things in order to keep the fight from being boring. Now, if it's fire damage, they try to use lava against the lava monster. No, absolutely not. They eat that bullet because they bit it. Now, as far as legendary actions go, once you've gotten through legendary resistance, lava fissure, this is just give them 1-2 action ability that really just sells what you're going for. I like this idea of a 60-foot fissure of lava because he's slowly taking the board away between throwing lava, doing that, and it buffs him, so somebody probably should be maintaining it. So I would definitely throw these things in there if I know they have ways to prevent it. But oftentimes, my players will come up with something like I wouldn't have thought. If there's lava there, maybe they want to use Shape Earth and ask if they can close the fissure. And normally that's a no, but because this is the ending campaign monster, a big bad, they should be able to do it. And that's really it. These are just some thoughts on how to make an interesting monster in D&D, how to really sell your final thing. I just did my final fight with this character who could control time. I had a great time and I loved it. And I often recommend something you can do is at the end of the first 3 rounds, give the villain actions, which are just kind of like legendary actions, but affect the whole party. This is a Matthew Colville thing, I believe. He came up with it. Action-oriented monsters, I believe, is his video, and I think it's great. He does a great job, I think better than myself at explaining these things, but I appreciate you all for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down below. If you want me to stat out a certain monster for you, leave a comment. I'd be happy to try something out. We could do anything from a unicorn to a sea hydra, whatever you want to do. Or we can make one over how to make interesting low-level monsters, action-oriented ones. Well, thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, like I said, leave them down below, and I appreciate you. Peace.